We're going to talk a little bit about strength. Lyrical name that tune. I'm only going to give you one phrase from a song. From this, I think it's from the 70s, for God's sakes. Might be from the early 80s. She's not crying. She's just singing a little low. Anybody know that lyric? Nobody? It's a wonderful song. The artist is Ricky Lee Jones. And the song is Youngblood. And I've always liked that lyric. That's a good song, by the way. Right? It's about the youth, but she ain't crying. She's just singing a little low. Right? That no matter what the world sees about what you're doing, sometimes the very most strong thing you can do is to weep. Right? Sometimes it's all these different things. And you know, I often will when I'm talking more about grief, I'll say you got to learn to distinguish between tears of annihilation. A lot of times we think tears mean you're going to annihilate and somehow poof and be out of existence, that they're going to overwhelm you. Or tears of cleansing, right? So that's on another side of this equation. It's like, and don't want to just talk about grief. I want to talk about strength. That you might be having a hard day, and that might be exactly what it means to be strong, right? All right, sit up straight and tall. Start to feel more rather than less. One of the things that I still try to unpack, and I still haven't done it to the best of my ability, but Kevin Kling, I keep wanting to unpack this. I never quite hit the chord right. But he talks about resilience in terms of the ability to maintain one's shape despite what's happening. Not necessarily willful. It's not like fight for your shape, fight for who you are. It's like, how do you maintain your shape? Not rigidly, because like when you fall, right? If you hold tight when you fall, you're going to get injured. If you learn how to roll, maintain your shape enough and pop back up, that's different. How does the empty space in you find its way towards resilience without it just requiring your will? Damn. Amanda. Right? Laura is talking about this in terms of self-care a little bit. Makes sense. I need to do more of that. Balance is an equal distribution of presence. Presence entails also things I can't feel all the way and I don't get to control. So I'm sitting here going, where are my feet on my pedals? I don't quite feel them on my pedals because I have a severed spinal cord. Right? But I need to open to the fact that there's sensation where I can't feel. There's space in the very deep center of your chest behind your sternum. Right? You can let it collapse. That's for me, when I collapse, then I can get a deadening kind of will. That's a form of resilience. But I want it to open. So I'm going to start to sink the feeling of my sitting bones and the lift in my chest and try to see them as a continuation of the same action. I'm going to hit down with my sitting bones and extend my spine up and extend from the inner groin to the inner knee to the inner heel. I'm going to start to fill the vessel with a little bit of my action, but I'm going to stay open the whole time. I'm not going to win this pose. I'm going to feel this pose. I'm going to balance my head over my neck. I'm going to soften the inside of my mouth. I'm going to soften around the temples. I'm going to stay sturdy in my body. And I'm going to practice the quiet and the simultaneity of my will at the same time. Back to the balance again. Now I'm going to watch my breath, inhale, and move my rib cage. I'm going to let my rib cage be the fingers of my spine being the center of my Kundalini energy. And I'm going to watch the breath expand into my body by watching my expanding rib cage. And when I exhale, I'm still going to extend my spine. I'm going to notice the bottom side of underneath my collarbones, but I want to have that be in sync with the center of my chest. Equal distribution of presence. There's so much that you don't feel inside your body that you could. It's not a shortcoming. It's part of your resilience. And if you're ready and you want to, bring your hands into prayer, hands together. Midline. Reorganize around a more overt midline. Feel the heel of your hands. Feel the space between your sitting bones. Feel the spreading palm with the opening chest. Drop the shoulder blades. Spread the space between the shoulder blades. Be more alert. Bring alertness to your stillness. Bring structure to your stillness by utilizing your body. Notice my voice is getting with a stronger edge because there's will here, but there's softness. When you're in the best position you're going to be in today, let your emptiness be full and let your fullness be empty. Follow your breath. Let go of your day. Prepare your mind to do yoga. Good. And then release. Bring your hands down to your thighs, palms up. Take your sternum up toward your chin down over your sternum. Don't get bored with the same actions because you're learning. There's nuance always. Good, and then raise your head up with closed eyes and open your eyes. Having taught a lot of in-person traditional yoga, or I've taught a fair amount, I take your legs wide. I'm always smiling at the people that think that their strength or their worth as a yoga student depends on how long they can hold a pose. Right? And you can always tell them in the room, right? Or how loud their breath is or something, right? So now start moving around, but you're opening up your space again. And you're grateful for the openness, right? So you're moving around, right? You're doing the stuff. And remember, we had classes where as you're moving around and going maybe in circles, right? I want you to keep part of your awareness at the very center of your chest. And as you move around, watch the center of your chest, the empty space in your chest, move in relationship to your sitting bones, in the relationship to your feet, right? Start letting your mind or having your mind pay attention to your body already unifies your space, right? Your body actually makes relationships between different spaces. And by the way, your mind can't do that by itself. It can't make relationships between different spaces, empty spaces. It needs the body, right? Legs together. Again, getting the spine more active, right? Watching as you lean forward and lift up. Is there anything, lightness dripping down or filtering down to your legs? Right? When you're moving around, I think there probably is. right? That you're starting to use the movement to realize that part of you, there's the part that you can go, got it. And then there's the part of you that kind of missed down as you move, right? Now you got to move the other direction. Stay static. Feel your feet, your sitting bones. And now from the earth, mist up and out, right? Don't think. There's no such thing as a one-way street in yoga. There never in asana. There never was, right? So now you're going from earth to expansion, right? Which is again, occupy everything, right? Occupy everything. So I'm moving back and forth. And so again, I actually really like upward facing dog. So I'm going to come forward. I'm going to ground my sitting bones, knowing that to me, in Cobra pose is more of an earthy pose with a lot of will in it. And then I'm going to lift up. So, it's so wrong to just call this cat cow, in my opinion, right? But you can move your spine a little bit, start to move it around. But with the observer, which we've been talking about the observer, watch when you start to move your spine, how it changes sensation in the rest of your body, especially your legs, right? It changes stuff. Spinal movement changes stuff, right? Because it's the center of your life force. And your core channel actually is empty and it's full, right? I can feel the vertebrae. So when I'm back bending up over my chair, which I finally fixed the back of my chair yesterday, it was literally about to fall over. I'm glad I didn't go right through the back of it in one of the classes, right? And so I'm like going this way, opening and expanding it. But when I expand my chest, can I expand the sensation in my legs? That's interesting. So let's just try that. So sometimes I like to feel the triangle between where my tailbone is and where my knees are, right? And so find that for a second, where your tailbone is and where your knees are, and then try to extend out from each hip out to each knee, right? So I don't know what you do, but I have to kind of move my diaphragm to do that. I'm not exactly sure what you do, which is the intersection of the physiological body and the subtle body. So it's not a bad choice, right? So now, but I'm going to change now the energy of it. I'm going to try to feel that triangle from the tailbone to my knees. And I'm going to go up and over the back of my chair while simultaneously not just expanding this space towards the blue sky here. I'm going to try to expand from my tailbone out through my knees into space too, right? I'm going to go both directions, right? Down an expansion and up an expansion. Good. And then release. So now I'm going to take my legs apart again. So I'm going to make there be more of a physical analog to my legs expanding, right? And so one of the things that I naturally want to do when I have my legs wide here, right? Just to make sure I can feel it. Because remember, I'm paraplegic. So I do this, I push my knees out and I watch the change of gravity on my tailbone or on my sitting bones. So I get my mind to pay attention and to plug in to what's happening. Now, with my legs wide, and when we're practicing this, we're actually practicing standing poses. Why standing poses have wide legs in a lot of them, right? So we're trying to get energy to extend. It's hard to get energy moving through the legs when you're doing standing poses while you're sitting, right? So I'm going to go back up over my chair. I'm going to hit onto my thighs at the same time, right? And I'm going to have this lift in my chest, help awareness go out through my legs, right? And then I'm going to pull awareness back towards my legs, back from my legs, and come forward. So there are a lot of yoga poses, standing poses, that have different changes in your spine in relationship to your legs, right? And so here, from here now, I'm going to be forward, right? Fine. And now as I lift my chest, I'm going to try to extend from out my femur bones, right? Spread my sacrum. So now, as I'm moving my spine, I'm trying to move the core energy out through my legs. So if I were teaching someone on the class that didn't have legs, that were amputated, I'd get them to get this action of feeling the energy change out from the femur bone out by having the spine express itself out through the legs as I'm lifting my chest. Good. Then I'm going to lean over a little bit. And so I'm going to change the dynamic again. I'm pushing down on my thigh. I'm pushing down on my thigh to help my spine springboard. But as my spine springboards up, I'm trying to extend down through the soles of my feet. Springboard up. Extend, open. Good time to include my rib cage now. Use your breath. Good. And come back to center. And go this way. Again, I'm trying to use earth here, down on my leg with my forearm, bone to bone, pushing on here, launching my spine. But as I launch this way, I'm trying to feel the mist go down through my legs. So I'm staying unified, right? So now I'm trying to relate the center behind my sternum to my sitting bones, to my knees, to my feet as I activate my spine. And then back to center. And so we're going to go the other way. And of course, we're going to include the arm a little bit, if you can, to whatever extent makes sense. But in a way, it's window dressing, right? So then I'm going to lose some of the grounding on this back thigh, right? And I'm going to open. Now, all the things I can do to make this more intense, I've taught it a zillion times. Today, I want you to tuck your left arm, tuck your right shoulder blade in, hit down through your left sitting bone, your right shoulder blade in, pardon me, your left sitting bone. The shoulder blade goes back towards the center as you extend beyond your fingertips. Now lengthen your spine this way. Ooh, that's a lot. Breathe. Good, and then come on back. Kind of took my breath away. Talking in yoga poses is only relatively smart. Or it's definitely dumb. This way. Down, down. The mist goes down. The physical action goes down. Remember, the weightlifter is thinking about his or her strength in terms of what's physically happening. You're watching more. And it comes up. And now you're doing these subtle things to make yourself stronger. Shoulder blade in, extending down, lengthening your spine. You're working, rather than the physical strength, you're working near the hub of the wheel to make your pose stronger, to make it more full. Good, and then release. Come back to center. So the thing about whatever I'm referring to today as the mist, right? Have you figured out that you don't get to control the mist? You get to receive it. right? You don't get this. So that mist is not going to happen straight from your will. Everyone, just try to like furrow your brow and try to figure out how to spread that mist all over your body. It's funny. The subtle body is not something that comes from your will. You try to set the conditions, perhaps sometimes with your will, in order to feel the mist is happening through your whole body. And then you're trying to breathe into the wholeness of the mist in your body. Downward facing dog. So you start to recognize that the structure of particular asanas are trying to get you access to a fullness so you can feel what I'm calling weirdly today the mist. I think I'm thirsty. The problem calling it mist is it's making me thirsty because it's so damn dry in Minnesota in the winter. Right? So it's like, holy cow. Right? But I'm trying to remember. As soon as I start thinking about the mist, my mouth gets drier, for God's sakes. So I'm lengthening my spine. I'm lifting the collarbones. I'm broadening my collarbones. I'm broadening across my sacrum. I'm extending down through my heels. I'm lengthening my neck out to the top of my head as I drop my shoulders. And I'm doing all this to notice the mist. I'm breathing to amplify the fullness of the pose, not to create it. Good. And then release. Elbow on the table, elbow on your thigh. Right? So I don't know about you, but when I have weird, I've got, well, we're all weird on some level, but I've got weird dysfunction right around this part. It's because I broke my spine here and it's fused. So my shoulders are kind of out of sync a little bit with the center of my chest. But I wager to say I see that in a lot of you, right? Because the upper thoracic is really hard space to realize. It's really hard to backbend too, right? So you got one shoulder down, right? So let your shoulder, so you got one arm, elbow down. Notice what happens when, again, my mind always learns from doing things wrong. Notice what happens when you let that shoulder blade flare out, right? It's not like it's wrong, but contrast that now with tucking it in. Tuck the shoulder blade in. Let it flail out. Watch what happens to the space in the center of your chest. Roll it in. Roll it in. This is the bottom shoulder blade in triangle pose. This is in Marichiasana 3. This is like a really core way to make sure the center of your chest is activating in the pose. Now, let it flail out again and notice the change in your base. Notice how your legs just got more dull, right? Bring it into the midline. Now, there's a whole different quality of energy coming through. Now, to receive it, although I'm using my will to bring my shoulder blade in, I need to have a different part of my consciousness receive the energy change. Breathe. So now I'm going to go with it because the yogis are always playing, right? I'm going to twist a little bit more, right? So I'm going to inhale, lift up, exhale, revolve, but I want to keep my spine long. Renee, keep your spine long. Come on, front body. You got to lengthen your front body, Renee, right? I got a good view of her pose here because she's in close to the screen. Good. And then release. Wind out of it slowly. Whew. Is that fatiguing on anyone's everything? Yeah. And if it wasn't, if you're from Denmark and it wasn't, and he's thinking about shaking his head, then I'm giving him shit for not doing the pose well hard enough. Yeah, he's going, maybe it wasn't because maybe I just stayed in my head that entire pose. Instead of like, I'm teasing you, right? You got to be ready. They'll warn you, everyone. It's Peter, right? Peter, I tease everybody. So I caught you thinking it wasn't that hard, right? All right, down the other way, right? And now I'm going to go through a whole bunch of stuff. You got to do as much on the other side. So for me, my pose is really different because of my scoliosis. So I don't have to do exactly the same thing, but you don't have as much scoliosis as I do. So likely, so let that shoulder, see, I collapse in, but let that shoulder go out again. Now revolve it in. And notice the difference in the change of your base between staying sticky with the midline, right? And what it is to let out. So for me on my pose, I actually just collapse in here. So it's harder for me to let it wing out because I'm too much the other way, right? But I want to watch what happens. So when I bring it towards the midline, I want to lengthen my spine. As I lengthen my spine, I'm looking for the mist through my legs. It's amazing. And then release. It's amazing how in so many poses, well, in Trikonasana, in Ardha Chandrasana, which is half moon pose, in revolved Trikonasana, in Parsvakonasana, in revolved Parsvakonasana, how often students fail to realize the importance of their shoulder blade, the bottom shoulder blade moving in towards the midline. And they weaken their pose, right? So down again, right? And the strength of the legs needs to come ground as you bring it in, right? So let it flail out and watch what happens to your spine because your chest drops when you let your shoulder blade go out. You're bringing it to the midline. You're extending your spine. Now you're then trying to go down through your legs, but now let your legs actually come up through your spine and breathe. See, I have a hard time instructing this way because my body's so different than yours, right? And I'm twisting and revolving and I'm extending and I'm looking for the mist, right? For the fullness of the pose. Good. And then come back to center. So now contrast that when you're forward and on the front edge of your sitting bones, right? Now sit back in your chair. So I don't want to say that, but we're now heading back to a kind of a different kind of twist. So doing it this way and coming forward onto the table is a little bit more like some of the standing poses, like revolved side flank pose, revolved Parsvakonasana. It's more like the revolved poses because you're struggling so much for balance. You have to find your midline, right? When you sit back in your chair and you go back to something that's more like Marichiasana 3, which is one of the twists, right? So take your right hand outside your left leg, but notice the change in dynamic of the pose, right? Because you're not forward on your sitting bones. It's different, right? Now, the tendency is that then some students squeeze the shit out of their pose, right? Because they want to get that strength again. Be careful what strength is here, right? You have to work the pose, but the way I want you to work the pose is hit down through your sitting bones and extend up to the top of your head. Rather than crank the twist at first, I want you to lengthen your spine, right? And try to, as you lengthen your spine, try to feel more of your feet down to the floor. And then keeping the spine long instead of just like emphasizing the twisting part. With the spine long, inhale, lift up, remember, last week we were talking about twisting with the whole room. It's a whole different class on balance, right? Inhale, lift up, exhale, revolve. Now we're thinking about what's the best utilization of strength, not just balance. So there's cranking here. I'm leaning, I'm grabbing my knee. I've got my forearm against my other around my other knee on my leg, but I'm twisting, but I'm trying to stay receiving because my will wants to win the twist. Inhale, lift up, exhale, revolve. Good. And then come on back to center. Now, I kind of cheated there by putting my forearm down. Oh, we'll do it the same on the other side. And then we'll twist one more time, right? So I got more leverage on that twist because I did it without thinking. So I was going to do more like my chest in 3, but I was grabbing like this, but I was sitting back more, which is different than what we were just doing down here, right? So I'm sitting back more. So I'm twisting, I'm lengthening, I'm making the work be in the lengthening of the spine to catch the mist. Inhale, lift up, exhale, revolve. To receive the mist, you can't use your will too much. You can use your will to twist, but you can't feel the subtle body as well. Inhale, lift up, exhale, revolve. So you're trying to find that balance. Good, and then release. So again, I'm going to move around a little bit because I kind of got my sense of my body into a small room there. I want to remember to feel the blue sky and stuff around me so I don't get too willful. The will is going to want to collapse your pose into smaller spaces so it can win better, right? All right, so inhale, take your arm up. Exhale, just out to the side, right? So now can emphasize more a lightness, not as much as a driving will, a lightness, sitting bones down, lifting the chest. Inhale, lift up, exhale, revolve. So I know I have a lot of ghosts and kind of downtrodden space that I earned in 2024 that I'm trying to twist out of my body as the new year starts. Trying to wring out like the dirty dishwater, the smelly dishwater out of my spine. Good, and then come on back to center. Right? You get to change your empty space in twists. Physiologically, they talk about it being detoxing. Inhale, lift up. Exhale, over. But I know I'm trying to cleanse here, right? So I'm like acknowledging the ways that I got in too many stuck patterns in 2024. And I'm trying to twist some of them out right here. Inhale, lift up, exhale, revolve. Lift under the collarbones. Lengthen the spine down to the sitting bones. Remember the whole room. I forget the whole room, right? I forget to receive. Inhale, lift up, exhale, revolve. Good, and then come on back to center. Be in the center. Remember to have a little bit of right? Some of that lightness again, right? Some of the space that's more fluid. So I remember watching my yoga teacher's husband. The guy could twist an incredible amount, but he really went for the crank of the twists, right? So Mike is his name, and he would sometimes twist so hard, he'd squeeze his kidneys so hard he'd pee, have red tinge in his blood, right? In his pee, right? And it's like, dude, you just like grab the crap out of your own kidneys. But you got to watch twists because they can get super willful, right? The thing about twists is they should be more intuitive, right? They're more intuitive. They're in like standing poses are analytic, but twists and back bends are more sensation based, right? Up and over the back of your chair, but we're doing it in a way, not for a back bend. We're doing it to prepare Shavasana, right? So you're trying to reopen some of the spaces, right? Because you want a certain kind of lightness to be part of your Shavasana, right? You want it to receive more on all cylinders, right? And I'm moving around because the thing about Shavasana is it's not a rhythmic pose, right? But I want it, my ability, my lightness, my ability to move to be getting nourished. So right now I'm pointing out, like I'm using my knees as pointers, right? So I'm shifting back and forth, like I'm pointing with my kneecaps, right? And I'm moving back and forth a little bit. Good, and then I'm gonna sit and stop moving right away. I'm gonna soften the inside of my mouth. I'm gonna do the things that I know are Shavasana. Before I go all the way into Shavasana, I'm gonna feel if I can sense a kind of hum. If I can feel that the movement, although I'm a little taxed, especially in my breath right now, because of me talking and moving, I'm gonna just notice. I'm gonna feel my skin. I'm gonna remember to feel space between the skin on my forehead and my cheeks and my cheekbones. I'm going to feel each foot, each sitting bone, try to create the symmetry so the river can come in equally into me. Symmetry to receive. And then I'm really going to surrender and let my chair hold me up. Lips together, teeth slightly apart. Feel your breath. Don't change it. Thank your body. It's what keeps you alive. Start to bring yourself back. Slightly deeper inhalation, slightly longer exhalation. Get to come back to where the world moves, where it happens. Come back to where the effort is, but you try to remember the mist. There are a whole bunch of layers to your nervous system, and you want to try to have it all, right? You want to bring as much as you with you, so the emptiness in you can definitely be the fuel for your will, for the ever rider bunny, the bunny that doesn't stop, the resilience that is a form of will. But so being able to squeeze it sometimes is what you need to do, right? This gets back to what people were saying earlier. Sometimes you have to balance, like Angelique and Laura and everyone was saying, I also got to know the limits. Melinda, it's like that I have to be able to let that back open, right? And so you need to be able to know when to squeeze it and know when to open it. And although you have emptiness, it can also be full. And when your emptiness is more full, it's when you can maintain your shape. It's never empty, it's never full. It's actually always both. And you're studying this in asana. You're studying how to stay full and light even when you're working hard physically, right? You're studying how to not lose it when you're working hard, right? And it's not just emotions. It's deeper than that. And it's always full. And it's always empty. All right, everybody. Good luck. 2025. Squeeze out some of that energy that needs to let go of. Renee, I like picking it because I know you long enough where I know you can take it. Right. All right. Hands together. Namaste. Spirit in me bows the spirit in you.